In this video, I want to look at making human figures. I don't want to use sculpting or modeling because that's very difficult, and there are a lot of people who are much better at that than I am. So I'm going to look at 3 free tools that are available to create human figures for you. We will look at the most common one, which is Makehuman, or we will look at MB Lab, which is a plugin, and we will use Charmorph, which is another plugin based on MB Lab, but for my money is the better one. Now, this isn't an in-depth review of these tools, and they can all do a lot more than I am showing you here, but this is just to give a brief overview of what is available if you want to make humans in Blender. The first one we're going to look at is Makehuman. Makehuman is a separate application that runs outside of Blender, and you create your human in there. So here we are at the Makehuman download page. I'll put links obviously in the descriptions below. So click on the appropriate download link and save it to a folder that you will find again afterwards. I have just done that. So let's navigate to the file we downloaded, double click on it to start up the application. So here we are in Makehuman, and there's your human in the middle of the screen. It's quite a confusing interface really. There's lots of icons at the top which do stuff, and there's sliders all over the place. On the left hand side you can see some generic sliders for gender, age, etc. And if you move these forwards and backwards, they change the human that you can see. Now this isn't a detailed tutorial on how to use Makehuman, but I'll speed this up and you can see generally how to use the software. One interesting feature of Makehuman is that it has the ability to add clothes and other assets, but they're not useful for 3D printing, so we're not going to even look at those, though I will at least show you where they are. One nice feature of Makehuman is that you can add a rig. There are several to choose from, and they will be imported into Blender, and you can use them and pose them as a normal rig. One of the useful things with Makehuman is the ability to add poses. There are some standard poses that come with the application, as you can see here, but also you can download some community poses as well as other assets. There are no assets downloaded by default, so the first thing you have to do is to synchronize with the database. This will take a moment, but it will download all of the assets that have been submitted by the community, though it didn't take long in my case because I've already synchronized it. Here on the left, there are various filters that you can select to choose different community contributed content. But really for 3D printing, it's only really the pose filter that we need. So click the update button and you'll be presented with a list of items that match the filters, in this case poses. As you can see, if you click through them, you get a little preview picture up in the top right hand corner. Now I'm going to pick this one and then download it using the download button here. And then click OK. So now, if you click over here, you can see in your pose list over here the ones that you downloaded. And here it is. And if you select that, your model will adopt the pose you downloaded. Fantastic. So now we need to talk about how to get your model from Makehuman into Blender. And it isn't just a case of exporting the model and importing it back into Blender. Instead, you have to set up a network connection between Blender and the running Makehuman application, and then in Blender import the model. It sounds complicated, but it isn't complicated, and it looks like it's a good idea, but in general, I don't think it is. Anyway, here's how you do it. First, you click on the Community tab, and then this little Socket tab, and ensure this little Accept Connections box is checked. It will show on the right hand side what the settings currently are, but if you want to change them, you have to click on the Advanced Settings checkbox and set them here. The host default should stay at 127.0.0.1. The port, which is by default 12345, can stay as 12345. It doesn't really matter as long as Blender has the same information. So be sure to keep a note of it. Okay, so let's see if we can load this model into Blender. So with Blender loaded, we're going to have to make sure we have the Makehuman add-on enabled. So here we are. Let's Alt-A and delete everything. Now we go into Preferences, search for Makehuman, and here we see that we have the Makehuman add-on and it is enabled. The little box is checked. So if we press N to go over into the N panel, you will see that you have the Makehuman option in the tabs. If you navigate here and scroll down to the bottom, you will see the host name and port that you set up in Makehuman. If they're not there, then make sure that they are the same as you had in Makehuman. With that set, click Mesh and Import, and there's your model imported directly from Makehuman. It has to be said that Makehuman has to still be running or this won't work. You can see by these orange lines that the rig that we set up in Makehuman, actually we didn't, but you could have done, is also imported. And if I select that rig in object mode and then go into pose mode, select a bone and rotate it, you can see that the model is working as you would expect. Let's do the arm as well, just for fun. Now for me, Makehuman is a little bit clunky. The models are good and the pose library is really good if you don't want to pose it yourself. But I do feel the way of importing into Blender is really not very handy. You have to have Makehuman running at the same time as Blender. It's just much easier to export and then import as you used to do. And you perhaps still can do, but I don't know how to do it. Also, the rig is not that great if you want to pose your model afterwards before getting it ready for printing. You can, of course, export without a rig and then Rigify afterwards, but that's a bit of a faff. So anyway, let's look at the next tool, which is MB Lab. MB Lab is different than Makehuman. It is a Blender add-on that you download from GitHub, and it runs in the N panel of Blender. So let's go to the MB Lab webpage. So here it is. And all you need to do is click on the GitHub button. Now you have to look for the latest release, which is down here, and select that. And then you download the source code zip. Save it to somewhere that you will remember it afterwards, and download it. So here we are in a nice Blender scene with the default cube already removed. And now we will install MB Lab. Go into Preferences, Add-ons, Install, and then go and find the zip file you downloaded from the MB Lab website. Click on Install, and after a short time, something will happen. There you go. Oh, I forgot. When you go into the preferences, you need to enable the add-on as well. So I'll just go back into there. You have to check this little box here. Great. So now we access the MB Lab add-on that we've just installed by pressing N, and that pulls up the N panel. And here you see it. down here somewhere on the right hand side, you'll have MB Lab tab. Press that, and here you are. Now up here you have a selection of characters that have already been created for you and come with MB Lab, and you just choose one that's closest to what you want to end up with. I would choose this one. Now up here you have a few basic options that you can choose before creating your character, such as which rendering engine you want to use, which isn't really useful for 3D printing, using basic muscles, or including inverse kinematics, which if you don't know what that is, you probably don't need. So now click Create Character, and after a short while, or possibly a long while, depending on how fast your computer is, the character will be generated. So here you are, and you'll find your model is delightfully clothed so that she's modest and nobody needs to get embarrassed. And as you can see, she has a rig applied, and I think the model is pretty good. Now on the right hand side at the top, you have some generic sliders that can be used to adjust basic things like age, body mass and muscle tone, and you can play with these, as you can see here. But if you want more fine-grained control over various aspects of the model, then you want to click on the Body Measures tab, and then you can select different parts of the body to adjust. Here I choose the stomach, and when I do, you'll see that there are some sliders that I can use to adjust the shape of the stomach. And now I'll choose another one. This time I'll choose the chest, and you get some more sliders and you can adjust these. This is a particularly popular option. Even after making these changes, if you're not happy with them, you can still go back to the character library and select one of the standard models that come with MB Lab. Just go back into character library, and then here you just select which of the characters you want to use, and if you select it, it will be applied. And I'll try a couple of them here and speed it up a bit so you can see it without getting too bored. And now I'll just set it back to the same as it was before. When you have your model posed, you have to finalize it here. And this asks you to save some textures or something. I don't really know what it's for, but I just save them in some random place. And that's it. That's your model finished and ready. So now we will go on to the last of the options, the last of the tools that we're looking at here, and that is Charmorph. Charmorph is another Blender add-on, and it's installed in the same way as MB Lab. I'll remind you that the links to these pages are in the description below. But basically, you download a zip file in the same way as we did with MB Lab. And then you install it into Blender in the same way as we did with MB Lab. But I'm not going to show that here again now. You'll notice when you come to enable the add-on that there is a checkbox for adult mode. This removes the underwear from any model that you create. Personally, I think this looks far less stupid than the MB Lab approach of putting underwear on. Anyway, in the end panel, you'll find some options for models. The one I would recommend is the Antonia Polygon model, although it is very female and not male at all. You'll see that the MB Lab ones are there too, but you don't need to use those. Charmorph is based off of MB Lab. When you've selected, then choose the import character model, and it very quickly creates you a new model in an unusual pose. Now basically this works very similar to MB Lab in that you choose different parts of the anatomy and modify it by moving sliders up and down, but this is much faster. Here I choose the pelvis, which is probably not a good one to choose because it makes hardly any difference at all to the model. So have a look at another one. Maybe we should go for the old favorite. And there are plenty of options on this one. Or failing that, we can try one of the other ones. Maybe let's have a look at the hips. Here you can see a little bit more movement. Anyway, suffice to say, you can finely tune your model. All sorts of parts, fingers, arms, legs, and very fine detail can be adjusted. But anyway, when you've finished creating your character, you want to finalize it. And here there's some options for rigging for your final character. I'm going to choose finger IK and finalize. And when finalized, it takes a little while, but then you have a rig created, which is much more sophisticated than the others. This is a really good rig. This is basically Rigify, which is perfect for posing your model to get it into exactly the correct position for you to save and print out. And that, in a very small nutshell, is Charmorph. So there you have the three tools, Makehuman, MB Lab, and Charmorph. They all have benefits and they all have disadvantages. Makehuman is by far the most popular, and it allows you to add clothes and various other bits and bobs. But I find it basically cumbersome to work with, and particularly to import into Blender. Also, once you have it imported into Blender, you can't change the model, except by sculpting or normal modeling tools. MB Lab is also a very good tool, although it's a little bit slow, and the development model for that is going in a direction which perhaps doesn't suit 3D printing as much as the current version does. Charmorph, on the other hand, although it has a very small development community, for me is the best one of the bunch. It's fast, it's convenient, it's very flexible, allows for a huge range of changes to the model, and comes with a great rig. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful, and if it was, then please subscribe. Thank you.